what got you into working in digital marketing? What was the thing that was like, I kind of like this avenue of software? Because you said your brother was quite into it before.
Yeah, so I mean, first signs of anything to do with the internet. Obviously, this was well back. Oh, where are we now? Probably maybe 10 years ago now. I was watching my brother program. He had a little website that was making a few quid here and there, and it was like, I saw it and it just sort of caught my eye, and I just watched him program. Like, it sounds really odd, but I was just watching him. I wasn't actually doing anything. I was too young, but I was just watching him make websites and tweak around and actually generating income. It wasn't, it wasn't really what he was doing. I was working out how is he actually making money, and it sort of caught my eye. And I think that entrepreneurial blood was always in me from there. I knew even before the internet, I had all sorts of things that I was doing. I was doing sale or returns. I had cricket equipment back then, and I was selling it to my mates, and I was getting it sent to me for free. So I had in my bedroom probably £2,000-3,000 worth of stock in my bedroom just for free. And then I was selling it on to my friends at the cricket nets and the cricket club. And ever since then, I was making money, interacting with other business owners and understanding how to leverage things and just flip things and sell things and have that DNA. I think I had that DNA in me early on, and I knew that I was good at it, and I knew it was something that I really enjoyed, and I knew that surely, like, even when the internet was coming of age, it was like, surely I can make a few quid online and get out of the rat race, because school was never really for me specifically. But yeah, just ever since I saw my brother, I think, and I was doing the cricket thing at the same time, I knew that the digital side of it was for me. I necessarily didn't know that I would end up with an agency, but I knew that I'd always be able to make money online, offline. I knew I had that sort of hustle, whatever you want to call it. I knew I could bring things together and get by, really, and it went from there, really, I guess.
Yeah. So what got you? I mean, you're watching your brother do programming.
Mm-hmm.
So he's working on software development.
Yeah.
Things like that. How did? I'm trying to think of the way. At what age did you decide, like, I'm going to take those first steps and then work with, like, online?
Online, I wouldn't say online. I went away from online I didn't go away from online, but I left school at 16, and my mum was like, why, I went to college for like 2 months. I was like, this is not for me. I knew education was not for me. Not out of anything against it or anything. I knew.
What do you mean by education?
Like the college, like school. I felt this ever since I was at school. Like, I felt in prison. I felt it was like I was working for someone, and it was like I don't take instruction from anyone very well, because that's just how I am. Like, I think if someone telling me how to live my life was not really how I envisaged how life should be. I think you've only got one chance and all that stuff around. I'm not going to go too motivational around that, but that was for me. I was like, this is my time. I'm young. I'm living at home. I could find a way out. And when I left school at 16, I then went straight into work, and I was sort of hanging around in cricket forums, going to cricket meets, and understanding about the industry, specifically around cricket equipment. There's no money in it, really, but I then got sort of poached or found online from this guy who just said, do you want to come work for me full time? And I was like, all right. And I was probably 17. And then I left. I was just working at Argos back then. I left Argos, and then I went straight into a job. I think I was 17 back then. And
what was the job?
So it was everything, really. It was weird, because it's like how I started Bulldog. It was like doing everything. So I got slammed into this business that was probably, I don't really say the revenue side of it, but it was doing all right. It was doing well. They'd never had any employees before, and I was the first one. Two very hard-working guys. and then they'd always run it as a side, they'd run it as a business where they were running itself, but they never scaled it to where they wanted to get it to. And I think I was the person that could have done that for them, and we got somewhere with that. And I sort of went straight into the business, and this wasn't really necessarily online. We had an online presence, but I wasn't really working on that side of things. I was working on selling, I was working on calling cricket clubs up, selling equipment to them, clothing. I was building relationships. I was out on the road. They gave me a company car, and I didn't really know what, I sort of thought this opportunity was awesome. And I understood how the small business was run, and the upsides, the downsides, the hard work that it took to get that business going. And, there's some hard lessons learned there that brought me to where I am today, I guess. I learned every aspect, from invoicing, from selling, to delivering the goods, customer service, how not to do certain things, ordering stock. I mean, I don't work in the stock game now, but, I understood how to buy and sell things, what not to buy, what to buy, what periods, seasonalities and staffing and everything you can begin to imagine that a small business needs and runs, just like mine did from the start. I needed all those expertise. I needed to understand how to send an invoice. I needed to understand about that. I needed to understand about a customer. I needed to understand about the journey of the customer. How did we get the customer, and delivering the product at the end, and then keeping them happy to then come back again. I think I learned a lot about unhappy people, unhappy customers, and then also happy customers as well, and how much they buy from you.
That's such a crucial thing, because when you work for a small business, you're normally put in like that department. Like, I just do sales. I do that.
Yeah, that's it.
You don't see the grand scheme of it, especially as like, who is my client and how do I get them to come back? And not only come back, but even invest and spend more and make a bigger client.
Correct.
And it's also
scary.
Interesting to see, just the administration side of it.
Yeah.
So when you're only working in sales, you don't realise that.
No, of course.
The backing of this is so important as well.
Absolutely.
And how did you think about if it was just like a kind of two-man team like you're doing?
Yeah.
Like how did that eventually scale to the time that you decided I don't want to do this?
Yeah. So then an opportunity came up. I think I was 18, and they got the contract for a cricket club in Leicester, like the county club, and it meant that I had to run the shop up there. I then had to still do the job that I was doing. So managing all my customers back then, managing all the manufacturing process, dealing with India, dealing with Pakistan, all these things came together, and then I had to uproot myself when I was 18 and live in Leicester, and it was like, I wasn't really ready for it, to be honest. I was ready for it, but it was such an upheaval, and I think I was just a little too young. I mean, I've always done stuff a lot. My age has never really held me back, but I did fill out my depth, but I always have done, and I still do today. But that's not necessarily, that it actually was good it happened, because if I would have stayed in that job for a little bit longer, but because I went to Leicester and it sort of emotionally hit me, to be honest. I was young, and I was doing things that, you wouldn't even think that I'd be doing. And even looking back, I was like, wow, I don't know how I handled it. Like, emotionally, it was hard work. It was weird hours, all the time. Much like now, like my life is my work, and that's what I set myself up for. I'm always there. I'm always thinking about it. And it was that feeling back then, like I was always thinking about it. And it was like, I learnt that, I have to deal with it, but I think it was just moving halfway up the country was a bit more, I didn't necessarily miss my parents or anything. I think it was just everything else. And then I met my first girlfriend there, and she sort of was, didn't really work, and then I was like, enough is enough, I'm done, and it was really sad, because I loved it. Even looking back now, I mean, I absolutely loved it. Like, it was one of my, I'd love to do that now, even so. It's weird, because, I've done all right, and I've got to where I am. But it was just working in a small business and being part of the start, I think, was the most amazing thing. And then, after that, came back, and then went into a different small business as well.
But just going back a little bit, how important was it to have that mindset of just stepping out of your comfort zone? Because not everyone would be.
Oh,
let
God.
alone going to different universities where it's like, I'm going to one in London. Like,
Yeah.
somewhere that's not too far away from home.
Yeah.
But being 18 and going halfway up the country,
Yeah.
how hard was it emotionally, or like as an entrepreneur and in that mindset to just be like, this is what I need to do to get to the next step?
I think it just ramped up even more. It was almost like I moved here. I mean, when someone moves somewhere for a job, it's all, the job is effectively taking all control of what they did have. So I felt like all my control had gone. I couldn't just go to the gym. I couldn't just go play cricket locally how I wanted to. I had to move cricket clubs, and then I didn't really fit in with the cricket clubs around there. Then I stopped playing cricket, and it was the upheaval of it more than anything. And I think from an entrepreneurial side of things, I did feel, that's when I sort of started to think. I didn't necessarily think I could start to do things back then, but I always had a little bit of, I was always hustling, whatever you want to call it, but I still didn't really know that I was going to be an entrepreneur or a business person then. I think I needed another couple of years in the game in running in a small business. So that was when I, as I said, moved back and then found a different small business, which was cool.
And what was that catalyst that's like, I've had enough?
I think it was actually, my girlfriend back at the time. She just said, I think it was, it wasn't working, and I was like, this is not really. It didn't feel right. I mean, something was just wrong.
The career path obviously didn't. You didn't feel so comfortable that you're like, no worries, I'll just find someone else that's within this area.
Yeah, no.
Enough that
I had to just snip it. Yeah, and I mean, it was, as I said, it was a blessing. It was. I'm glad it happened, but it was a shock tactic.
Yeah, I read something. Actually, no, sorry. I listened to something, and it was talking about sometimes there's a lot of blessings in disguise. That things that happen, that like it was the best thing that can ever happen.
Yeah, I think it just
People
happened.
would say like sometimes, oh, don't avoid this, don't avoid the situation.
It's usually shock tactics. It's usually, I've lost my job. Shit, I need to get going. I need to do something about it. And it's like, I don't think people, as I said, I'm not going to try and use this video as a way where I should tell people what to do, but I think people, it has to hit them, and then they do it. They have to lose their job. People get very comfortable, and it is scary. It is scary to look at a new career. It's scary to completely change what you're doing. It's scary to leave your job and just have no money, or go down the entrepreneurial route. But if you feel like it's in you, then you have to do. I feel like you have to do it. I think if you're good enough and you deserve, you should be putting, you should give yourself that chance. Even if, these days entrepreneurship is much easier. Without the internet, I'm pretty sure I'll never have been, an entrepreneur or business person, because it opens up so many avenues. You can be an average entrepreneur or freelancer or someone and make a really good living. Even if you've not got the DNA or the work ethic or the drive or the courage or the risk, you can still, you can buy and sell stuff pretty easy. You can set up a little website, a Shopify website, and you'd be surprised what happens. There's a thing called AliExpress. You just go on there and find a product, and then you can sell it on eBay, and you can get that product sent direct to your customer. You don't even have to do anything. It just needs a bit of needs a bit of initiative. Initiative is hard sometimes if you're not willing to put in those sort of the work for no reward, because when you're putting in work for no reward, that's when people stop. Same with the gym. You put in the work and nothing's happening because it takes so long, and then they give up. And that's never been something that I've done. I've happily put in the hours if it doesn't come to anything.
Yeah.
It's a lesson learned for me.
How important was support from friends and family during these transitions?
I would say
I wouldn't.
Yeah, I wouldn't say they'll support me, but to a point. But only you can do it. And I think you know, you shouldn't lean on others too much. And I'm bad at that. Like, I'll bottle things up and let it all fester, and I'll deal with it myself. And I never really asked for people's opinions on what I wanted to do. You know, it's out of the ordinary to do things, you know, to go in the world of business and do stuff online. Like, it's unheard of back then anyway. Probably, I mean, what are we now, 2018? Yeah, like 2013 when I set up Bulldog, like that was a little bit unheard of, and you know, entrepreneurship wasn't really cool back then. You know, it's not cool to not go out with your mates and not have any money, but I could have easily got a cool job. I could have got a good job and earned quite a bit of money because I had that experience in sales, and I knew I was a good salesman, so I knew I'd always get a job. And yeah, it wasn't cool to have no money for like a year and try things, but you know, that sacrifice certainly did work.
And what was that thing that clicked into your head that I wanted to start my own business? I didn't want to work for another month.
So that was at my last job I ever had. That was for, same within clothing, embroidery, print. I bloody loved that job. Like, that was, even now, I loved the whole, you know, I was working with the embroiderer and print. I was dealing with the customer. I was selling. I was then sending the packages out. I was just seeing the whole process come together of, I went to get the customer, I then gave it to someone to do, I then physically booked it to send it out, and I got that kickback of, you know, I structured it in a way where, you know, if I was going to make them money, I would get more money, and I was doing really well, and I was doing well back then anyway. And then I was like, okay, there's this thing called the internet, and I decided to set up a little website as like a lead gen site for the business that I was in. So it was just
what is lead gen?
So a lead generation site. So if you worked for like a crochet, I think that's a crochet company, or a business card company now, and you just made a website saying garethbusinesscards.com or something, and then I started to get leads in from any way, then I could pass them to the company that I'm working for. And that, you know, you're bringing them business, you're bringing them value. And I thought, as long as you can keep giving a company value and sales, then you are, you know, you're the best employee. I think when employees begin to limit themselves to what they're doing and not giving too much value to the company, you know, you can just go and get another one. You know, if they're simple, if you're just giving the company little value, they can just go and find someone else for that role. And I was like, I need to give this guy, you know, I need to bring in leads, I need to bring in sales. So I made this little website, and it kept, you know, I set up this little phone thing, the phone kept ringing, and it started to rank in Google. And I was like, how is this happening? Like, I just made this little website, and it was bringing in loads of leads. My boss was really happy, and then I started to really learn digital and how to, you know, leverage Google. You know, there's so many things out there now that you could launch something on Etsy, eBay, Google Shopping, Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest. The list goes on, and you know, like, I think people just get very scared about doing it. And I was never scared. Like, not I wasn't scared, but I just did it. I wouldn't say that I've got anything special or I didn't read any good books or anything. I just did it, and I thought I did what I thought would work. And if it didn't work, I would have, you know, I don't know what I would have done, but I would have tried something else. And then I started another site that was doing quite well as well, and that was drop shipping. So that was, I didn't deal with the customer. I got the traffic from Google. I don't even know how they found me, to be honest. I think it was Google back then. But I didn't really know how to rank in Google or to have a presence on Google. Then, I just had a few orders, and I didn't necessarily make much money, but I started to get people come to me and say, hey, can you help with my site to help, you know, move it up Google? Can you do Google ads? Can you do this and do that? And I was like, not really. I don't really know what I'm doing, but yeah, okay, sounds good. So I got people to pay me. I think it wasn't much back then. It was like £150 a month. I mean, we'd never take on a client like that now, but back then, you know, I was on my own. that was on top of my job back then. So I was doing all right, and I started to then. I think people get scared if someone says, you know, can you do something? You go, yeah, and then you work it out. I think, you know, if you're a filmmaker or something, yeah. If you're a filmmaker, you know, if someone says, can you do audio? You go, yeah, okay. Or you go find someone that can do audio. It's a different skill, and then you put it together, and then you learn audio if you need to, or you outsource it. I think people are like, whoa, no, I don't want to do that. But there's always a way, I think. Yeah.
Sweet.
Cool. Sweet.
You had a drink?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good.
Nice. So the next thing is really like, so you're working with this company. You've started to do this side gig.
Yeah.
You're getting some revenue in.
Yeah.
Got 150 quid a month.
Yeah, killing it.
Thai broads. What was the catalyst that was, all right, how can I make this my full time? I'm kind of limited with this main job, which is paying well, I'm comfortable, but now I want to get out of my comfort zone and start this venture. So what was going through your mind?
That's a good question,
Trying
very
to
good
make
question.
this decision, because that's not an easy decision.
No.
It's the start of your new life.
Yeah. Whew.
Feel free to take your time,
Yeah.
because there's a hard one. Obviously, it wasn't yesterday you made this decision.
No, this was 5 years ago.
5 years.
I mean, looking back now, it still scares me a little bit, but it's weird because I was glad. I think because I was young, it made the whole decision much easier in my mind, anyway. But I think it was like my mum. My mum just wants not to worry about me. She doesn't like, you know, mums worry, parents worry, and I think my mum, she just wants what's the best for me and wants an easy life. You know, she doesn't want me to be worried. You know, I wasn't the cleverest of kids in the world. School was hard for me, and she probably thought, you know, he'll do all right. He'll get a job, and you know, why don't you just get a 9 to 5? I think she said at one point. Sorry, Mum, but she did, and you know, I was like, no, because I'm going to be. Well, I hope so. I'm on this earth for much longer than my mum. You know, I'm going to be here longer than my mum. I want to be doing something that, you know, was my choice. And yeah, I mean, it's quite, you know, to say no, you know, to say that to your parents. And my dad always had an entrepreneurial flair to him, I think. And he, you know, when I said it to them, I think, you know, they were just like, oh, yeah, great, you know. My mum was a bit negative about it. I think my dad was okay about it, I think, looking back. But yeah, it was pretty scary, to be honest. But again, what was the worst that was going to happen, really? I think that's what I was thinking. What's the worst that's going to happen? I'll just go get a job. I knew I could always get a job. Like, I had this cool, good way of getting a job and finding, you know, I knew if I went down the conventional routes of getting a job, I'd just get a conventional job. I wanted to get a job that really suited me, and that's how I got the job before I started Bulldog. You know, I went a weird way around it. I found someone that I really wanted to work for and learn from, and then pitched myself to him rather than, he didn't have a job out. He didn't have an advert out for a job specifically. I just came to him and I sent my CV in the post with like a covering letter, and it was really tailored to him. And I think I always knew that I could get a job, so I think making the decision was much easier. I also thought, what was the worst that was going to happen? You know, I had a bit of money saved up, not a huge amount, probably about £2,000. And I had a little bit of income coming in, and I just sort of went on it. And God, I just remember, I mean, I can never work from home. I struggle to work, full-time work from home. I do work from home sometimes, and, you know, work at weekends or come in here, whatever, but to work full-time from home would have been hard, and it was. I think I had 6 months working from home, and then I sort of started talking to this other entrepreneur, local guy, who sells t-shirts and stuff, who I had already built a relationship with back then, and yeah, I said to him, you know, should we start a little site? I can rank it, and you know, that site's still ranking to this day, which is cool. So yeah, I went to him and sort of said, can I, you know, do a bit of work, in your office, but use your desk, you know, to get me out of the home environment. I think that's crucial. That was crucial for me to get out of the home and you know, getting into a different business. I wasn't working for him, but you know, I was working in his office. You know, had that interaction every day that I think people do need. Well, I definitely needed it. I need to speak to people. I need to have a laugh. I need to, you know, have my lunch there. I need to come home, then have dinner at a separate place. I think I needed that structure. And I think that was one of the most important things as an entrepreneur for me back then, was having structure. And then I got my own office in that building, which I don't know, it was maybe about £300 or £400 a month, which is quite a lot. And I was like, well, that's quite a lot. And then I was just in the office on my own for quite a bit, probably 6 months. And then I got Lee, my first employee, who was working part-time for me, just started coming on part-time for me. And I was going in teaching him when I can. And then I remember exactly where I was sitting when I asked Lee to to be be full-time, and that was a big thing for me. But again, I didn't really ask anyone if it was all right. Like, I just did it. I didn't ask my parents, really. I think that's, for me, I never needed permission to do stuff. You know, I never needed that. Yeah, go for it. You know, I didn't need that, because if I want to do something, I'll do it. If I don't want to do it, I won't do it. It comes with everything in
It's quite a lot of courage to have that.
maybe.
Someone that is very reliant on, like, let's say if you've got loads of bills, you've got loads coming up, people that need some sort of like guidance, a lot of guidance. So
They
if you're in a
do,
position
yeah.
where you're like, oh, is this the right decision? You're always asking.
Yeah,
That's
I think
very
that's the
forward-thinking.
verification, maybe a little bit of insecurity when people ask, but then, you know, it's natural, you know. But for me, I knew I was good at, I know I'm good at business. Everything else in life, like, I genuinely struggle with. Like, luckily I can get support, you know, people to help me, like employees to support other stuff that happens in my life, which really does help me, because I know all I want to do is do what I do best, and then everything else, you know, I can either get someone to handle it. You know, it's like you wouldn't, if you're signing your house away or you're selling your house, or you wouldn't do those things yourself. And I thought, if I can put my strengths to what I'm good at, like selling and maybe employing people and finding a bit of talent, I'm okay at that. I wouldn't say I'm the best. You know, I still have help with that. The reason why recruitment companies do well is because they're good at recruitment. The reason why we do well is because we're good at digital. The reason why solicitors are solicitors. You know, everyone has their expertise, and I knew I was good at sales, I was good at business, and I was good at stepping out my comfort zone. And you know, I had some massive meetings that I'd landed myself, and I was just going there on my own, and you know, I was just going back to my little office, and they probably didn't realise what sort of an outfit I had back then, which is quite funny. But I always, you know, that comes so naturally to me, and I never really ask for anyone's opinion on things specifically, because I know the way that I want to do it, and if it's wrong, then I'll learn from it. I'm in no rush. I'm patient. I'm really patient in general, with business, which I think's, you know, something a lot of entrepreneurs, you know, struggle with. You know, they want it now. They want that quick fix, cryptocurrency. You know, how can I make an extra this, that? How can I, you know, and it takes time to build something substantial. Takes time, of course. And I was always prepared to invest and constantly invest into the business rather than take it out on buying cars and watches or whatever other people, you know, I remember a couple of my mates who were like, oh, why don't you buy this? Why don't you buy that? And I'm like, no, like it doesn't even appeal to me too much now, really, even. I don't need that sort of stuff. You know, if I'm living life on my own terms, that's all I ever really wanted. Can I get a way of living life on my own terms and doing something good, like employing people was cool. You know, it's weird that, you know, people turn up here every day, and that's something that I've created myself.
Without jumping the gun.
Yeah, sure.
Going from just you in the office, you're working 6 months flat out. You know, developing and working with different industries, getting the Google ads, digital marketing, helping them get their revenue higher, and then getting Lee on board. How did you scale from having one employee to then getting 5, and then getting from 10, and getting to 20?
So you want to, okay.
You know, 5 years.
Yeah, it was quick. I would say Lee was yeah, like the 6 months, that just happened. And I think me and Lee were with each other for maybe 2 or 3 months before we got someone else. And again, that person sort of come to us and said they can help. It wasn't necessarily me going out and, one of my worst traits I have as a businessman is, if something slaps me in the face, then I go and do it sometimes. I'm very good at going out proactively doing other stuff, but employees, I'm not the best at recruiting. It's hard. I'm not the best at hiring a recruitment company to go and find me talent. We do that now, but like unless it slapped me in the face, it didn't happen. And I was just, I was very good at using my own contacts, but not necessarily hiring someone to do it for me. And then Ryan, I think Ryan came to us as well. And then Andre came to us. So the people were coming to me, so I didn't necessarily feel I needed to actively go out and employ people and look out for people. But yeah, they came to me and they wanted me to give them an opportunity. And I was like, yeah, if they've come to me, they've used their initiative, I want that employee. I always thought if I'm going out to find people, at the start of a startup, I think it's if you can find people that are looking for or have got really good initiative and also feel like they're on the same journey as you, and from the start they want to build something, and if they have that proactiveness about them, then we're already one step ahead of everyone else, because a lot of people just employ employees via the usual routes. So how did you scale? How did I scale? I mean, I wish I had a formula that I could give to someone to help them, but
because it gets to a point where I see a lot of businesses, even 10 years running,
yeah,
still a small team.
Okay, it's mindset mainly. It's mainly mindset. There's no tactics or you hire here and it was gut instinct more than anything. And I think going on gut and having the right mindset, you're always going to win to a certain extent. Have you got the talent, etc. But if you just go with your gut, like, you'll be surprised what happens, because if you know, you know. If you don't know, you don't know. And I think it was just going with my gut. And yeah, mindset really. Reinvestment, yeah. So that was the mindset part. It was, okay, I'm not going to take that 500 quid a month or £1,000 a month or £2,000 a month or £3,000 a month or £4,000 a month or £5,000 a month and put it on my wrist or go and pay for something that I don't necessarily need to make me happy, because I think people realize, for me, that didn't necessarily make me happy. That just covers, I think they're like, it's like putting a plaster on something and that scar still always be there. Like, for me, that wasn't necessarily the aim. Like, I wanted to build something that also grew itself as well. I wanted to build something that didn't rely on me. I wanted to bring in some cool talent, so that required investment. But it's mindset, I would say, more than anything. How can you take yourself out of the equation, and that's by reinvesting. Taking yourself out of the equation is crucial. Can you find people better than me? Adam's better at Excel than I'd ever be, and why do I need to be good at that when I can hire him and him bring some value to the company and learns on the job and experience things and understands things and makes decisions for himself, which are going to be better than me, because I don't know what the hell I'm doing in half the aspects of what happens here. But if you hire Adam, who has a really odd brain around Excel, not an odd brain, but that's what he's good at. And yeah, he has that chemical, I would say he has that, that he's good at that thing, I'm good at certain things, other people are good at maths, other people are good at English. Yeah, he's mechanically minded, and I thought, okay, if I can get someone like that to run the numbers and help me scale numbers, then perfect. It's going to be better than I would ever be, and I don't want to be doing that. And also, that's not scalable. Like, if I did the Excel, if I started dealing with paying people and the money, that's not scalable. But it was all about how can I scale with good people and taking myself out of the equation every time. 9 times out of 10, there's people. I think it's, what is it? Probably ego. People always think that they can do something better. And when it's your own business, it's hard. When you see someone sitting there doing something that you could probably do better, which happens, but you've not trained them properly, or they're not the right fit. There's always someone that's going to do a job better than you. or more accurate than you. You know, I've got 4 million things going on in my head. So if I was to do a job now for something specific around that, you know, I might not be able to do the job properly. No, what was I saying? It would be hard for me to do that job because I've got so much going around in my head. I could do the job, but as an entrepreneur, it plays mind games with you in general. And, you know, I don't want to be doing that sort of stuff. So, but it is, you know, there is people better than you at pretty much everything. And I learned that if I can find people that are better than me in certain areas of the business and do what I do best, you know, take the risk. Yeah, I guess it seemed to work. But yeah, it's ego. I think people are very scared and they want to do everything themselves. They think, you know, invoicing only takes an hour a day. Well, yeah, it's an hour a day, but you're never going to be able to get that hour back. That hour should be thinking about how you're going to build the business, strategize, have meetings, and go out and get clients and do what you're best at. It might be that you might be the mechanical person, you might be a programmer. You know, my brother's an awesome programmer, but you know he's not a good salesman, and that's fine. And I'm not a good programmer, so you know he's doing what he wants to do. He's programming, and that's, you know, he's awesome at that and the best that anyone can be probably or close to. But if I can get those talented people inside my business, then things start to really happen.
Yeah. So where you're at now with Bulldog is at quite interesting state, because it's really the snowball is here. It's like you're really just like everything's now coming into fruition. You've already gone through so many award ceremonies. You've got awards under your belt.
Yeah.
How are you going from?
That's a good question.
From 20 people in the office, which has been amazing, because in the space of 1 year you've gone from 10 to 20.
Yeah.
So how can we get from 20 to 100?
It's a good question. And do I want to get to 100? The true answer is I really don't know, and I'd be lying if I didn't know. I know I'm capable of getting to 100 employees if that's what I want. I'm just taking it slowly, to be honest with you. Is 100 employees a better business than the one with 20 employees? On paper, maybe, and the revenues might be higher, but does that mean it's more profitable? It's a higher risk. There's a lot more that can go wrong. There's a lot more stress. And again, it comes down to what does the business owner want and the ambition of the business owner. And yes, I know I'm capable of doing it if that's what I wanted to do. But the last few months, you know, taking a step back and really working out what I want to do. I'm still young, I'm still 25. I still want to do certain things, you know, travel a little bit, work abroad from my laptop, you know, try new stuff within the business. You know, I've been spending a lot of time in the business lately. Sometimes I take a little bit of time off to think, you know, meet new people. Me and my brother got a separate business, you know, etc. But my ambition is still crazy huge, but I'm living the life that I've always wanted to. So I'm not going to necessarily jeopardize that for a bigger business. Does that make sense? Yeah. I think we're drilled into the fact that you should be, you know, selling your business for 4 billion, you know, or you should be a startup. You know, you're the next Uber, the next Waze, or the next all these apps that are coming out. And I think that's the problem with entrepreneurship. It's either, you know, you're making 4 billion a year, or you're a startup, and the journey in between is more important. You know, I mean, I wouldn't say I'm any happier now than I was this time last year with doubled employees. So why would I want more? But on the other hand, I know that I'm capable of it, and I know it'd be an injustice if I didn't do it. So that's another mind screw for me.
Yeah. Where does that ceiling hit? You know, when you see all these people like Grant Cardone, Ty Lopez, they're all about scaling, get big, big cash. Where does that ego? Where do you have to sit that ego and think like, okay, like, is this just getting a bit too much? Is this success and ego outweighing my happiness?
It does.
What's that? There's there's a word that means like everything's relative. So no matter.
Yeah. But again, I don't want it to be at my health. You know, running a business, an agency in general, any business is stressful, and I know I need to make time to do the things I want to do to ensure that I'm making the best decisions. I'm not going to work myself into the ground. The reason why I've got staff is for me to not do that. And I think it is, you know, there is people out there that say you should be working all the time, you should be doing that. But I want to do it how I want to do it. I've always done it that way. Yes, I like looking at content online, you know, all those entrepreneurs that you mentioned. And I take it with a pinch of salt because they're obviously selling a dream that, you know, at the end of the day, they're probably selling a course or something around about how to be this rich, etc. Yeah, I wouldn't say. I think entrepreneurship now is very much like, oh, we'll raise some money, I'll make an app, and I'll be rich. Like, and it's it hasn't changed. The strategies and everything hasn't changed. You still have to be, you know, you might be that 0.1% person that's really lucky, or you have a great idea, but it's about execution of that idea and being patient and persistence. You know, I've had people come to me saying I've got a really good idea. I'm like, great, go do it and come back to me in a year and see how you've gone. Then I'll help you. I'm not prepared to help anyone that, you know, has an idea and then doesn't really want to do anything around or any work. And it's very easy to get VC funding or angel funding. You know, anyone can raise money. If I wanted to go and raise £1 million today or tomorrow or the next year, I'm pretty sure I can. And a lot of entrepreneurs can that aren't entrepreneurs. And I think it's drilled into their head that going out and getting funding is an easy way out. You know, don't forget, if you get £1 million of funding, you've got to make £1 million of net profit to even start giving that back into that person that's funded you, or something crazy's got to happen. And yes, funding is needed at certain points for different businesses, but I still think keeping it lean at the start and having full control of your business is more important. You know, if I had funding to start Bulldog, I'd still be reporting to them every week about how it's doing. I don't want that. And I think the beauty of being an entrepreneur is you don't have to do that. So when you have a VC or someone on your back, and there comes a point where you might need some funding at a later stage or etc., that's fine. But I think at the start, for me, it was crucial that I didn't have someone on my back. You know, I wanted to live it on my own terms. And even now, you know, you're saying 20, should I be 100? You know, that's just perception of what people think. You know, you should be growing. And yes, we are growing. I'm not going to take that away from it. And I want growth. That's what I live off. But I live off, you know, more the culture of the clients, the culture of the employees, how happy they are, what good are we putting back into society in terms of how we're helping other businesses. I think that's more crucial than ridiculous growth and then more stress that comes with it. You know, I've got a long way. The beauty of entrepreneurship and business is I've got a long way ahead. I'm not an athlete. I'm not a footballer. I've got probably another 40 years of this. So it's a marathon. So I'm not being too, you know, I'm just taking it slow and little goals along the way. And your mindset changes. You know, if I had kids, I had certain things, you know, then I might be doing certain things differently. You know, I'd have more responsibility, you know, we'd have to do certain different things, or I might want the business to be 10 times the size because I want this house or whatever. But I don't necessarily have those goals at the minute. I'm more than happy at the minute and just happy for what I've created, I guess. And helping others as well, like other entrepreneurs, is what I quite like doing.
Do you have, obviously you say you're very comfortable where you're at now and the growth is going nice and steady. Is there any overall dreams that you have that you can foresee in the future that, you know what, you know, in my 50s, I want to have 5 businesses, very successful businesses, and I'm just passive.
Yeah.
Only call me when the checks are coming in.
No, not really. I mean, yes, I have, you know, my brother's business who we set up together. Yeah, I like different businesses, but, you know, I love Bulldog and that's what I originally set out to do. And, you know, I still have that drive to innovate within Bulldog. it's not all about more pies, and you spread yourself thin. I mean, look at all the biggest businesses out there. Do you think they've got 4 businesses on the go at once? No. So I think it's easy to get the shiny object syndrome, and definitely.
It's hard because you hear that phrase like, "Don't put your eggs in one
Yeah.
basket," and people get scared. Because being a business owner myself,
Mm.
do get scared thinking like, if I'm offering only a specific service,
Mm.
is that a bad way to go about it?
I think you can adapt within your business, definitely, and innovate and have little side bits, little side websites or little ideas you want to execute or bits of software that we produce here that we want to try. That's fine. But when you're taking your whole time away to different business, I think that's when it becomes dangerous. And, you're only as good as your last month, your last week, your last wage bill. So you've got to be careful. You can't take it for granted, definitely. And as soon as you step away from your business, it will, it's gonna have its consequences without fail. You are, even though the business is a well-oiled machine, effectively, or could be, or anyone's business could be, or should be. Then even if you step away, you're still going to have that flair that's disappeared. That you make certain calls that only you can make because it's your business and only you know as well. Because a lot of the employees aren't entrepreneurs, they aren't risk takers, so that's me to be there to do that for them, so then they get the upside of it or the downside of it, but that's the execution that I make every day and the risks that we take and the infrastructure, etc.
And how do you think that our current climate makes it possible for people to become entrepreneurs?
Yes.
Having the mindset.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. I worry though. I do worry. The school situation. I mean, this is my opinion, and I don't want anyone else to. This is just my opinion. I don't want anyone to. It might be right, it might be wrong, but this is what. It's subjective. I think if you're going to school and you're going to university to do a certain thing, maybe being a doctor or a lawyer, you need a degree. But if you want to do something creative or something different or be a businessman, I think going to uni is probably a waste of time. If you're going to uni and learning business from a professor who's probably never done business before, then you're a bit screwed, in my opinion, and it might be wrong. But the best thing I'd ever did was get close to real business owners that are in the trenches, are doing the things that you have to experience it. It's like watching a video about how to walk and then stepping in the real world and walking for the first time. You wouldn't know what to do. You'd be like, it wouldn't work. You have to experience that side to it. Like, I can't describe, because business is not like anything else. It's not like maths. It's not like English. You can't just learn it. It's something you have to experience. And yes, everything else, you learn, if you're a maths teacher, you learn more on the job. But I think going to uni personally, I think is, not always a waste of time. It's a great experience. But if you really want to be an entrepreneur and you feel like you can be, now's the best time. And the younger you are, the better, because as soon as you start getting a real job and you start to get some money, it's very hard to get rid of that, that paycheck every month. You want to be going out with your mates, you want a new car, you want a new watch, or, you like fancy meals. We all do, but that's the hardest part of if you go through the system and come out of uni and then go into a job, it's freaking hard to get out of it, to be honest with you, especially if you're, in London or you've got mates at work. It's like leaving your job's hard. But I think now's the absolute best time. Absolutely, yeah. It's very, it's not for everyone. But is that worrying? Yeah, it's probably worrying because there's a lot of people out there that shouldn't be entrepreneurs that are. But still, you can still make a good living. But being a freelancer's tough. Being a freelance, I would say being a freelancer is probably the toughest thing. Being a business person and then having a couple of staff, I think it's easier than being a freelancer, because freelancer you're constantly, it's just hard. You're constantly going from job to job to job to job, and then you've got to try and do a bit of business in the middle whilst you're doing your job. Like if you're a filmer or a designer, or you're constantly thinking in the back of your mind what's happening with my next job. But that's the same with a small business owner, like on their own. But I think the freelancer, because if you set yourself up to be a freelancer, you're only ever going to be a freelancer, and it's going to be hard to get out of it. And the same with going to uni and then getting a job. It's hard to get out of the job, because what's on the other side, it's a lot of work, it's a lot of effort, and maybe no reward. And there's a lot of people and a lot of parents that want the best for their kids, and maybe they think that that's the best for them.
So what would be the main lessons learned within the 5 years that you've started Bulldog?
A heck of a lot of lessons. You're only as good as your last month. I think, I think that it's easy to get carried away and very comfortable. Surround yourself with really good people in the same boat as you, because no one is in. There's very few people in the boat that I am in, locally to me. So I've had to go out and find people that are in that boat, and to spend a lot more time. I always spend a lot of time on learning and watching people, like other entrepreneurs, other content online, and sort of just watching them. Not necessarily putting anything into practice, but just understanding how they run their business, how they run their life, what their ambitions are. And it is hard to I think, so I would say that's definitely, just surround yourself with good people, and also find an escape in a different, have something in your life. For me, business is 90% of my life, I would say. Staying fit and healthy is very important for me. It's so stressful, I need that release of, every day. I go to gym probably every other day, every day, and it's very important for me to let that off and just not worry too much, because worrying is the ultimate hard thing about being an entrepreneur. So just try not to worry too much. Easy for me to say, easy for anyone to say, and I've worried a heck of a lot as well. But just surround yourself with good people that are going to be there and have been through the same. But also make your own decisions. You don't always need to have someone else's opinion on it, because if you have 4 opinions on something, then you're never really going to get to a conclusion. Those opinions are always going to be different, because, I'm trying to think of a good analogy. Yeah, I think it's like it's subjective. If someone, you say, oh, do you like this car? And someone will go, oh, yeah, it's all right. And then someone will go, oh, I love it. And someone will go, the colour's not great. And then those 4 opinions just confuse you even more. And what you set out to do just becomes even harder, because you're just getting opinions all the time. And, I don't care if this logo didn't work. I just did it. I didn't get anyone's opinion on it. I thought, that looks really cool. Let's go with it. And to be honest, it's weird, because I've had a couple of logos that I've done in my time, and I always end up changing them. But this one logo seemed to have stuck for 5 years, and I even look at this today and go, yeah, I did a good job on that. But that doesn't matter. There could have been, he could have had different eyes or something back then, and I could have adapted. But if I got someone else's opinion on it, someone might go, oh, that font or that typeface looks a bit weird, and then I would have been back to the drawing board, and I might not have ever done the bloody thing. So it's like, it just sets you back. Other opinions just set you back, whether it's the right opinion or not. But just take everything with a pinch of salt. If they've been there and actually had that experience as a businessman or woman, then yeah, definitely take their advice and try and get their understanding of it. But if they've never been there specifically, then why would you take someone's advice?
So would you suggest people finding a business mentor to get to that?
I hate the word mentor. Hate it. Why? I don't know. It's more the word, the business coach, mentor, all that crap. Yeah. I wouldn't say you want to be bouncing things off each other. You don't. You want to be teaching them things. So if you get a group of people that are, maybe someone's been there and done it, but you can teach them the new way of doing it or a different way of doing it. Business adapts. There's a lot of businessmen and women out there that are using old tactics. They're sending invoices in the post. Come on. I've told a few businesses that you can automate a heck of a lot of stuff within your business now. invoicing, bookkeeping, everything around things you can automate. The internet and software is awesome. You know, how you did business 30, 40 years ago is different to now, in my opinion, but there's still some awesome things you can grab from that experience, and you can't buy that, you know. They've got some great lessons, but we can teach them as much as they taught us, sorry. So I think getting good people in your life is probably the most important lesson. And just going with your gut, really, and as I said, not necessarily listening to other people's opinions, and try and enjoy it. I mean, what else are we supposed to be doing, you know? Try and enjoy it, understanding that these couple of years or a year of sacrifice, of no money, of living not with much at all, of stress, then is going to set you up for 40, 50 years of joy and happiness and obviously stress, but you know, you're living life on your own terms, and I wouldn't wish. It frustrates me when people live their lives for the weekend, which I know is a thing, and I know I also enjoy the weekend as much as anyone else, but when you're working for someone else and you're not enjoying it, then I think there comes a point where you need to try and get out of that and do something for yourself. Otherwise, it might be too late, especially when you're, you know, maybe early 20s, late teens sort of thing. I think you've just got to go and do it for yourself, because who else? No one's going to do it for you. You know, that no one really cares about you, I think. I learned that no one really cares about you. Like, no one's really going to help you. You know, they'll help you to a certain extent, but you have to do it for yourself. It's not just going to happen. And whilst you're young, it's a great time. But also, even if there's so many ways you can make money online, it's scary. You can be an employee and make a couple of grand a month on the side just selling crochet or loo roll or whatever the hell you want to sell, because there's loads of ways you can do it. Anything you want to sell, you can do it, and there's a way. But what are you gonna? I always think, what am I gonna do with that £50 or £100 or £10,000? And sometimes, in my case, what am I gonna do with it? Nothing. You know, the business needs to keep investing into it. It needs to take risks. It needs to innovate. It needs to spend money on software, and it's none of this stuff is cheap. And I think if people think that in their lives, like thinking, you know, what am I going to spend this 50 quid on, or 100 quid? Why don't I buy this? Why don't I buy some purple knitting or whatever, and make this and try and sell it on Etsy? I think we got this off Etsy. You know, why don't you try and do something different? And you can make a few quid, and also that's probably quite enjoyable for the person that made it. And you're doing something with your brain, you know, you're not... I mean, maybe a little bit different to other people, but I just see people that go home and sit there and just, you know, watch TV and don't do anything proactive. They're not testing their brain, and I think it's just, your brain is so important to keep stimulated, you know, whether it be at the gym, which is important, whether it be learning stuff outside of work or in work. I think keeping your brain stimulated is very underrated, because people, you know, it is easy just to go home and watch the football, which is fine if that's what you want to do. But if you're doing that and then getting frustrated about how you're not making any money, then there's obviously an issue. But I think just keeping your brain stimulated was, even now for me, the most important thing, and learning as well, and understanding how people work, learning about cool tricks and stuff in business, automation and all sorts of stuff, and just makes your life much easier. And I think people are just very scared to do anything that people aren't doing, you know. And there's a lot of distractions in this world now, which makes things even harder. You know, your mates are out doing things, they're messaging your WhatsApp, and it's very easy to just go, all right, okay. And it's the hardest thing to do is to cut off certain people, which you probably have to do, not for any intention, but just you've got to focus. You know, a lot of my friends, most of them are understanding. I think all of them are understanding of what I do, and obviously, you know, it's just the way it happened. I'd like to think they're understanding, but you do have to be the only thing I'd say as an entrepreneur, you've got to be selfish. I think that's the hardest thing to be is, selfish really, because ultimately it's your dream you've got to build. And the sacrifices that come with it. But I think the most important thing is don't listen to anyone else, and just enjoy it really.
Ace.
All good?
Got it.
Sweet.